Hey everybody, it's Michelle. Today we are making some chocolate chip cookies, and I'm so excited to make these because these are the all-time best chocolate chip cookies ever. And it's all because of one odd, really weird kind of ingredient to put in cookies. It is cornstarch. And I know that's such a weird thing to put in cookies, but trust me, it makes it the fluffiest, chewiest, and most tastiest chocolate chip cookie in the entire world. And you will love it. So I'm so excited to make it. So let's go ahead and make these. So first you need a mixing bowl. And if you don't have a standalone mixer, that's okay. You can just use any kind of bowl as long as it's a big enough one. And this paddle attachment is the kind that you need, not this whisk one like this, because that's not really making that. So first you need 3/4 of a cup of butter. And if you look on butter, it has these little tablespoon things. And there's 8 tablespoons in a stick of butter. So if you cut off two of the tablespoons, it's 3/4. So put that in there. And then we have to put the sugars in. So you have 1/4 of a cup of sugar. And you put that in. And then you need 3/4 of brown sugar. And I didn't put that one in a separate thing because I want to show you how to properly put brown sugar in it. You don't just scoop it up. When you scoop it in, you have to pack it in with something else. You can use a spoon or another measuring cup or what have you. So it's all packed in there. And when you put it into the bowl, you should have the imprint of the measuring cup still out from the brown sugar. So we have 3/4 cups of the brown sugar. And then we need to whisk that up until it's all creamed together. And the butter has to be softened. It can't be melted. It can be room temperature, but it has to be soft enough that it will mix together with all of the sugars. But it can't be melted or else it won't get the right consistency that it needs. Okay, so we're just going to stop it and then get a rubber spatula like this one. And we're just going to get it right off of the mixing blade. And I see that the butter isn't all completely mixed in with the sugars, so we're just going to put it in for a little bit longer. Alright, so after it's mixed together, it's not going to be liquidy at all. It's going to be really chunky and really, really sugary. So we need to add 2 tablespoons of vanilla. And mix that in. And then we're going to add 1 egg. You have to be careful when you're putting an egg into any kind of baking solution that you don't get any shells in. And if you do, just make sure that you wash your hands before. Well, you should just wash your hands before anyways. And you can just dig it out before you mix it. So we're going to cream that all together. Alright, so when it's done, it should be very liquidy. I would show you what I'm going to try to do without it dripping all over the place. See, it's a little liquidy, but it's still got a sugary kind of texture to it. Alright, so after we get that, we are going to mix in the flour. And I didn't set out the flour because I also wanted to show you how to properly mix in the flour. Now we need 2 cups of flour. And we just have this little serving thingy already in our flour. But if you just want to get like a cup or like another measuring cup, you can't ever scoop it up like this because it makes it packed, and that makes the cookies really, really floury. So you have to scoop it into something else and put it into the measuring cup. And it's all piled up here. Of course, I'm not going to pour it in like that because that's way too much flour. You just flatten it right off. And you don't want to just dump it in. You want to turn on the mixer and you want to slowly add it in. Because not only does it make the dough really, really floury, but it also will just fling flour all over the place. And unless you want to wear flour all over your clothes, I advise you not to do that. So we're going to stop after the first cup and just get everything off of the mixer and push it down towards the middle off of the sides of the bowl. And then we're going to turn it on and measure out another cup. And just add it in real slowly. Okay, so after the flour, we have to put in the cornstarch. And right here I have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, and it's just white powdery substance if you've never actually seen cornstarch before. And if you have a standalone mixer and it starts doing this, kind of jumping, there's a locking button right here on the other side. And it just holds it down so it doesn't jump all over the place like that. Alright, so after the cornstarch, we're going to put in a 1/2 tablespoon of salt. And you can just dump that in there. You don't really have to stir it along with it. And then we have 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Just put that in. And baking soda acts as like the yeast in it, so it'll rise. Otherwise we'll just have flat, kind of gooey, boring kind of cookies. So the baking soda makes them pop up a little more and makes them even more fluffier than the cornstarch will. Alright, so now we got our dough, but we're missing one thing, and that is a cup of chocolate chips. And you just want to turn it on again like you did with the flour. Turn it on, and you just slowly dump them in. So if you don't do that, the chocolate chips are all just going to be in one spot. And you'll have either really, really chocolatey cookies, or they'll be just plain with no chocolate chips in them at all. Stop it in between after putting at least 1/2 cup in it. Get it all off the mixer. Turn back on and add some more chocolate chips. Now some of the chocolate chips will stay like all on the bottom of it, since all of the dough is getting sucked up into the mixer. So after you get it all off of the mixer, just kind of scoop it and press the unchocolatey dough into the bottom of the mixer so it'll get all the chocolate chips back up. Alright, so after you get all of that stirred up, it'll look just like this. It looks delicious and it tastes delicious, but you shouldn't eat too much raw cookie dough because it'll make you sick. So I have over here just 2 regular cookie sheet, and this, it's a cookie dropper. And if you don't have one of these marvelous inventions, you can use the drop method. You just take 2 spoons, scoop them up, scoop the batter up into it, and you just drop them onto the cookie sheet. But this is a lot easier because you don't have to try and pry it off. You just scoop it into the edge of it. Now, you want to set the oven to 350, and after you put the cookies on the cookie sheet, you want to spread them out a little bit so that they don't all stick together. And you put it in the oven and set the timer to 8 minutes. Now, the recipe says that you have to put it in for 8 to 10 minutes, but whenever a recipe says to put it in for however many time like that, like 10 to 20 minutes or whatever. You want to put it in for the lowest one so that if they are done, or they're not done, you can put them in for longer. But once they get burnt, they're burnt and you can't do anything about it. So we're going to put them in for 8 minutes, and then we're going to come back and check on them. And if they're not done, then we'll put them in for another minute, and we'll see how they are. Okay, so the timer just went off, so I'm going to check and see if the cookies are done. And once again, they've been in for 8 minutes now. And they are not done, so I'm going to have to put them in for another minute. And you can just keep going with this until you get up to having them in for 10 minutes, but you cannot have them in for another second more than 10 minutes. Or else it'll just ruin the whole entire recipe and they won't be as good as they say they are. Okay, so I've had them in for 10 minutes, and the timer just went off the second time, or maybe the third time. So they're looking pretty good. They're a little brown on the tops, which is splendid because who doesn't like that? So we're gonna go ahead and put it in the next sheet. And you just want to leave these sitting on the sheet for about 5 minutes or so that the bottoms get like crispy enough that you can pick them up, and then you put them on the cooling rack. Just love the cooling rack for about 3 minutes or so, just until they're cool enough to eat, because you don't want to burn your fingers at all while you're trying to eat a cookie. And now we wait for them to be done. Okay, so I just finished making the cookies. I also burnt my arm pretty good. So be careful of that. Don't burn your arms. But here it is, in all its glory. It's kind of tiny. The ones I made are kind of teeny tiny because the cookie scooper is very small. But when you're going to make these, you at least use a tablespoon. These are the greatest cookies ever. They really are. But if you don't like really, really chewy cookies, this probably isn't for you. This is good. I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to put a link to the recipe in the description. Chocolate on my face. So try it and eat it because it's delicious. And enjoy it.